phones because we're talking about infidelity. You're cheating on me.
I'm cheating on you.
There's someone in my life that I love.
Or is it lust?
But if you or I find out about it, all hell's going to break loose.
Someone is having an
affair.
It goes on in 50% of all committed relationships.
It could be yours.
Or it might not be.
What's going on when someone's having an affair? Sex, life and love coach Jacqueline Hellier joins us. Hello, Jacqueline.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
I
That's a
think
pleasure.
the first thing I need to know,
Yes.
on behalf of all of us, is
yes.
monogamy a natural state? Are human beings actually meant to just have one mating partner?
Well, we'd be a fairly unusual species if we did.
If we were?
If we were.
Dolphins do, though, don't they?
There's a lot of a lot of species are into pair bonding, which humans are. Yeah, we bond to raise a family, but does that mean we have to be monogamous? The facts are is that it seems that around 50% of people, and we don't know this for sure,
Because they're not putting their
Have
hand up
affairs.
and saying, yeah, I'm having one.
Yeah. All the statistics seem to show somewhere between about 30 and up to 70% of people at some stage.
Is it men or women or
both.
both? It's both.
It's both. I mean, most of these affairs are heterosexual, so there's got to be a man and there's got to be a woman.
Yes, and we were talking about it just before. Apparently, allegedly, women who have affairs have them at the end of the relationship. Is that true? Or when they think the relationship's pretty over?
I couldn't tell you about that.
Okay, why do you think people have affairs? I mean, I know there's a myriad of reasons.
There are a lot of reasons. Usually someone has an affair because something is lacking in their primary relationship, okay? And the affair fulfills something that they need, or they feel they need. And it's interesting because a lot of people who I talk to who have affairs, and I often talk to people who have had the affair rather than the one who has been the
Cheated on.
the cheated partner. And they never had any intention of having an affair. You know, when they got married, you know, they were all for fidelity, and they would never have thought that they wouldn't. But life changes, their relationship changes.
Is there intent to have an affair, or is it more situation?
Most people don't intend to have an affair.
And also, when they tell about an affair, is it because they're nearly going to get caught, or does guilt get them? I find it really interesting because when I've been cheated on, it's always because I've found out.
Yeah.
I've never come up and said, oh, by the way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with having affairs, is that people get hurt. And it's interesting because there are couples who have consensual extramarital sex. They actually have an agreement that we don't have to be monogamous.
An open relationship.
An open relationship, but even open relationships have boundaries.
Yes.
Okay, but it's not the societal norm that it's monogamy or nothing. Okay, that's our social construct for whatever reason, and I don't want to say whether it's good or bad, but that is the norm in our society. Whereas people who have consensual extramarital sex will say, only with these people or in these situations, and yes, tell me about it or don't tell me about it. But the difference is between that and an illicit affair, which is what most affairs are, is the honesty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the issue then. With the people that you've spoken to who have had affairs and it wasn't their intent to have an affair, what was the tipping point? Have you been able to gauge the tipping point that's kind of like a general point?
Why they did it?
Yeah, what actually tipped them over into saying yes and getting involved, or is it something that creeps up?
Look, you remember the excitement when you first fell in love?
Yeah.
You know, and you felt so special and you loved and heightened and the world looks glossy.
Damned dopamines in the brain.
It is, blame the hormones. But if you're in a relationship that for some reason has just got a bit dull, it's got boring, it's lacked the spice, you're not feeling appreciated by your partner for any reason or just not enough, and then you meet someone who just makes you feel really special and, you know, those hormones are
let's think about, so that's what's happening when the affair's going on and it's in secret, and so most people wouldn't have the bills to pay or the kids to look after. What happens when the person leaves their partner for their lover?
Yes.
Is this relationship likely to last?
Yeah, that's one of the troubles from the point of view if you're the person having the affair. Now, this isn't a lesson on how to have a successful affair, but you have to realise the difference between reality and fantasy. Okay? So if you're having an affair and it's fabulous and it's wonderful and you have nothing to worry about, okay, because you haven't got the kids, you haven't got the mortgage, you haven't got, you know, you've got to get breakfast and la 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 la.
You haven't got the shame and you haven't got the broken relationships all the way around you.
And you've got the little space where you can go and have this really special encounter. Now, if you compare that with your reality and find your reality wanting, so leave your reality and try and replace it with this fantasy, you're going to end up with the same reality again.
Or worse, because
worse.
you've got to balance up blended families, you've got to balance up the shame, and you've got to balance up relationships broken, not just with your partner, but with your community.
And your children. Yeah. That's why so many men in their 50s end up with more babies, 2 families to support, an embittered former wife.
Let's look at if you decide to break off the affair.
Yes.
And you think, no, I'm going to try and make my relationship work. Yes. Now, I read a statistic that before you ring the divorce lawyer, you should ring for counselling, and that 2 out of 3 marriages can survive this. Yes. How does the person who's been cheated on handle it? What's the best way for them to go through it and rebuild the trust?
Yeah, sure. You need to recognise that if you're feeling really bad about this, that's perfectly acceptable. Of course you're pissed off. You know, you may go through a period of really hating your partner.
Yeah.
But if you can be strong within yourself and come to a position where you can realise that if this happened, it was probably because there was something lacking in the relationship. So we can see this as a way of identifying what was lacking and then remedying that, all right? Then you can move forward within the relationship because there was probably an awful lot of good in your relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't just sort of say, oh, he's a bastard, I hate him, I want nothing to do with him, because you had all these years, you know, you've got a family, you've got a life.
And a network.
A lot of good stuff there.
This is interesting. There are 2 places I need to go now. The first thing is the lover.
Yes.
How does the lover actually feel when the person with the dual relationships leaves them? What sort of person can maintain a space as just being the lover, as being there for the lollies?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I mean, probably the ideal form of an affair, here I go again telling you how to good affair, the ideal affair would be like, say, 2 married people coming together for a spot of fun.
Well, that's
occasionally.
You need a set of car keys for that, isn't it?
Yeah. Sometimes it's someone that, you know, goes on like for 20 years.
Well, it can. Yeah. I mean, it's all a relationship. And you have your primary relationship, and then you have your relationship with your lover, and you have to negotiate.
But there must be a self-esteem issue with someone who is consistently the lover of someone who is in a primary committed relationship.
Well, you'd think so, but then I met someone who was in that role, and she loved it because she had no responsibilities at all.
Yeah.
She just had this lovely man who'd turn up every so often, and they'd have a really lovely time together and go. She didn't want to have a family. She was financially independent. She didn't want to live with anybody.
Did she feel bad for the other person? Because I can't understand that. Personally, I just could never, ever go for someone that I know has another relationship.
Yeah. Well, possibly, but if...
And I know people say you can't help who you fall in love with.
The other person doesn't exist for you. I mean, if you're existing in this this fantastically fantasy world of having an affair, nothing else exists in that outside world, and that's why it's such a deceitful place to live and to place your heart. The other question is, beyond the affair and the discovery of the affair, can you actually rebuild the relationship? Is it easier to rebuild if the woman has had the affair or if the man has had the affair? Do you know those?
I don't know about that, but it's an interesting question. And one thing that probably does impact on that is there's a tendency in men that they can cope with emotional infidelity. So they're not worried about their wife falling in love, but they can't stand the thought of her having sex. Right? So if she's had sex, it's like, well, that's it, you know, it's all over. Whereas women are the opposite. It's the emotional infidelity that gets them more sexual, right? So a woman is more likely to be able to forgive her partner if he has sex with someone else, okay, and then continue with the relationship somehow. But if he falls in love with someone else, that's it.
Maybe if it was once, I don't think I could condone either. I'm very strict.
Yeah.
Not only is she strict, but she's got a very sharp set of kitchen knives. Then going on from that, because maybe there are people watching who are either involved in an affair or actually coping with the pain of knowing that their partner has. So on a really serious note, who should you be listening to advice from? Because I know that friends can take sides and muddle your head. But if a relationship is more than sex, if a relationship is history and friendships and a life,
it is.
What do you do in this situation, this raw, painful situation where your relationship suddenly is combusted and you are left with a choice? Can I rebuild or should I leave?
If you can't figure that out between the two of you on your own, and that's perfectly normal because there's so much emotion going on, talk to a third party. There's masses of trained counsellors and therapists and life coaches who can help you get the distance and the clarity and who can help you communicate with each other.
And understand your own feelings. Well, we would like to hear from you. Our Optus phone poll today, could your relationship survive an affair?
If you say yes, phone 1902 559 601. Or if you say no, call 1902 559 602, or you can just text us, SMS yes or no, to 199 596 600. There are so many variations that go on in relationships. On Monday, we're going to be talking about a different kind of affair, married men who have gay sex. It happens, doesn't it, Jacqueline?
Oh, yeah, we didn't even go there.
No, but on Monday we will. So, Jacqueline, thank you so much for giving us an enlightened look at relationships and affairs. It's always a pleasure to talk with you on the couch.
Yes.
We'll be back with more after the break. See you shortly.